I've often held the opinion that certain themes are more powerful to each of us than others. Examples of themes or ideas or visions that touch me deeply include being a child of God, having chains loosed from around me, standing before Christ and my Creator, and I did this with Kelly. Woo! Standing before my Christ and my Creator, falling prostrate in front of them in utter praise and gratitude, and the fact that nothing, even sound, can separate me from the love of God. Nothing has penetrated more deeply and for so many years than the concept brought to me by a book called The Power of Blessing, and it's written by Carrie Kirkwood. What I speak of today are concepts primarily from that book. Probably one of the most powerful reasons for my work with this book is the idea that it answers a basic question which I think all of us have had. Have you ever wondered why you're here? We can quickly state that I'm here to be whatever it is that you do for a living. You're a teacher, preacher, singer, computer operator, manager, server, any of those things, etc. Or to be a spouse to a wife, a husband, lover, provider, or to witness to my neighbors or pray for the sick. I don't doubt or argue with any of that. I'm sure that God had ordained me to be a chiropractor. Yet I believe more than that, I am called to bless. No matter what, bless. In all things, to all people, bless. Consider some of those in the Bible that have blessed others that, frankly, I would have had a hard time blessing at those particular times or those particular people. Stephen, Acts 7, verse 60. He says to the people that are stoning him, Lord, do not hold this against them. Paul and Silas are thrown in jail, and instead of cursing the guards, they sing hymns and say praises. And at the end of all of that, the jailer and his household are saved. Jesus from the cross, our ultimate example, blessed the thief that hung next to him. He blessed even the soldiers by asking God to forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. We could cite dozens of other times where blessings were given when I could not do that. So why are we here? 1 Peter, which we read here, 1 Peter 3, 8 and 9 says we are called to bless, to always bless, like them or not, understand or not, feel like it or not, to bless. Part of the journey in trying to always bless, for me, is remembering to do that, to focus on that. A story that I am often reminded of when it comes to focusing is the story of a man who wants to go to the king to complain about the village. The village, there's too much cussing and fussing and fighting and thieving and too much going on. The king gives this man a task that he is to complete before the king will give him an audience. So he is to carry an egg, raw, balanced on a spoon, small, from one end of the village to the other. There will be a guard following behind him with sword drawn. If he drops the egg, the guard is to cut off his head. Surprise, the man makes it with his head back to the castle. The king then asks him what he saw or heard that was a problem. He heard and saw nothing that was a problem. He had no focus on the world. His focus was just the task of keeping the egg, which meant keeping his head. It's never been our job or business or destiny to look at the negative details of the world, calling out the sins of those around us, deeming ourselves judge and jury. Our focus is to see others as God sees them, see their full potential through God's eyes. Blessing always will focus upon what God originally intended for each one of us. In Genesis, God declared that everything that was created was good. Opposing what God has said is good brings us in conflict with God. So to bless is to declare God's intentions over them, other people, other situations, rather than reciting their sins. People often lack the insight of being able to see as God sees. I would be one of those. God sees us as God's children, as perfect, whole, and complete in God. First, we have to think blessing. I am guessing that most of us have had our computers crash at one time or another. There's nothing to do about that most of the time, but to wipe out all the programs and the bugs and to reload, start all over again, reprogram. Would that we could do that with our minds. Just reload, just reprogram. It's not that simple, as we all know. We will need to reprogram our lives to think blessing always. We have to think blessing so that we can then speak blessing. Proverbs 18:21 says, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue." Speaking releases the blessing. We are literally prophesying and breathing out the breath of God as we bless. What a powerful thing. Okay. Breathing out blessing releases God's power to work in a person or a situation. Here we are again at the focus issue. Focusing to control the tongue to bless only. Many of us have been taken down a wrong path by what we have said, by the tongue. There is help, though. God's Holy Spirit is our coach who teaches us what to say. 1 Corinthians 2:12 and 13 says, "Now we have received not the spirit of the world, but the Spirit who is from God, that we might know the things freely given to us by God, which things we also speak, not in words taught by human wisdom, but in those taught by the Spirit, combining spiritual thoughts and spiritual words." So can what we say really matter? The verse in Mark promises that if we speak to a mountain to move, it will be moved. The words we speak have the intrinsic ability to affect change in our lives and the lives of others. If we visit Stephen again, when he was being stoned, we find that the blessing that Stephen made to those stoning him, those that he breathed out, was central in Paul's conversion. He was Saul, he became Paul, and it was a very central thing that he heard Stephen bless those people that were stoning him for Paul to be converted. This is the Paul, the prolific writer and disciple of Christ, who has taught us of many blessings that God has for us. What incredible influence Stephen's words through Paul have had over all Christians. So my prayer today then, for today, is that we as God's church choose to be on the mountain of blessing and declare the blessing of the Lord over our church. We bless this city, and may we be a light here. Whatever we do, let us express the love of Christ. Let the power of blessing come through our mouths this week on the job, in our families, and with our friends, even to our enemies. Blessing always. God bless you.